Good evening and welcome to Cross Currents, the program where we tackle the most pressing questions of our time. Tonight, we delve into a dilemma that sits at the very heart of our modern civilization, a question that shapes policy, fuels debate, and defines our future. In a world of finite resources and seemingly infinite ambitions, what should come first? A robust, growing economy, or the steadfast protection of our environment? This isn't a simple choice between profit and preservation. It's a complex conversation about priorities, progress, and ultimately, our collective survival. To help us navigate this challenging topic, we're joined by two distinguished guests with very different perspectives. On my right, we have Mr. Ben Carter, a renowned economist and senior fellow at the Institute for Global Trade and Development. Mr. Carter has long argued that economic health is the essential prerequisite for solving society's most complex problems, including environmental challenges. Welcome, Mr. Carter.
Thank you for having me, Anya.
And on my left, Ms. Chloe Davis, an acclaimed environmental scientist and the executive director of the Climate Integrity Institute. Ms. Davis contends that the environment is the fundamental bedrock upon which any sustainable economy must be built, a viewpoint she has championed on the global stage. Welcome to you, Ms. Davis.
It's a pleasure to be here.
The format for our debate this evening will be as follows. Each guest will begin with a 4-minute opening statement. Following that, we will move into a moderated discussion where I will pose questions to both of you. Finally, you will each have 90 seconds for a closing statement. So let's begin. Mr. Carter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anya. Let me start by being perfectly clear. No one here is advocating for a polluted planet. We all desire clean air, clean water, and a healthy world for our children. The question is not, need we should protect the environment, but how we can do so most effectively. And the answer, unequivocally, lies in building a strong, prosperous, and innovative economy. A thriving economy is the engine of all human progress. It's what funds our hospitals, our schools, our social safety nets, and, most importantly in this context, the scientific research and technological development required to solve our environmental problems. Think of it this way. You must first build a strong, solid foundation before you can construct a secure and beautiful house. The economy is that foundation. A society struggling with poverty, unemployment, and instability doesn't have the luxury of investing in long-term environmental solutions. Their immediate concerns are survival, food, shelter, and basic security. Look at the evidence. The nations with the most severe environmental degradation are often the poorest. They lack the resources to enforce regulations, manage waste, or transition to cleaner technologies. Conversely, which countries are leading the charge in renewable energy conservation and green innovation? It's the wealthiest nations. They have the capital, the stability, and the educated workforce to invest billions in wind farms, solar panels, and sustainable infrastructure. To impose severe, growth-restricting environmental policies on an economy is profoundly counterproductive. It's like telling a doctor to stop treating patients in order to save on medical supplies. You weaken your ability to solve the very problem you claim to prioritize. The path forward is not to stifle our economies with punitive restrictions, but to accelerate them. We need to foster innovation through economic freedom and competition. The solutions to our environmental challenges, be it affordable carbon capture, next-generation battery storage, or revolutionary recycling processes, will not come from government mandates that cripple industry. They will come from dynamic, prosperous companies competing to create the next great breakthrough. Therefore, our primary goal must be to ensure the economic vitality that makes all this possible. We should aim for smarter, wealthier growth, because it's through prosperity that we will find our salvation.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. A very strong opening. Ms. Davis, your response?
Thank you. Mr. Carter has presented a very conventional and, I must say, a dangerously misleading argument. He suggests we must choose to build our economic foundation first. The problem with his analogy is that the economy is not the foundation. The environment is. The entire global economy is a subsystem, wholly and completely dependent on the larger system of the planet's biosphere. It's not separate from it, it's embedded within it. To suggest we prioritize the economy over the environment is like a business owner saying they'll focus exclusively on quarterly profits, while ignoring the fact that their one and only factory is on fire and about to collapse into a sinkhole. It's a strategy for guaranteed, catastrophic failure. For centuries, traditional economics has operated under a grand illusion that the services the planet provides are free: clean air to breathe, fresh water to drink, a stable climate to grow our food, oceans that provide sustenance to billions. These are not externalities. They are our natural capital, and for the last 200 years, we have been liquidating this capital at an astonishing rate and calling it profit. This is not profit. It's a debt, a colossal, intergenerational debt that we're passing on to our children, who will have to pay the devastating price. Mr. Carter speaks of the costs of regulation, but he conveniently ignores the astronomical costs of inaction. What is the economic cost of entire cities being choked by air pollution, leading to millions of premature deaths and soaring healthcare expenses? What is the cost of unprecedented droughts that destroy agricultural output and displace communities? What is the cost of superstorms, intensified by a warmer ocean, that inflict hundreds of billions of dollars in damage in a single event? These are not hypothetical scenarios. They're happening right now. They're the direct economic consequences of prioritizing short-term growth over long-term stability. The idea that wealthy nations can simply innovate their way out of this crisis is a fantasy. True, sustainable prosperity, the kind that can last for centuries, is only possible if we learn to operate within the physical limits of our planet. Protecting our environment is not a luxury to be afforded after we get rich. It's the most fundamental and wisest economic investment we can possibly make.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Two very clear and opposing viewpoints. Now let's move into our discussion segment. I'd like to pick up on a point that both of you touched upon: the role of developing nations. Ms. Davis, I'll start with you. You advocate for operating within planetary boundaries. However, for developing nations struggling with extreme poverty and a critical lack of basic infrastructure, isn't strict environmental regulation a direct barrier to growth? How do you respond to the argument that prioritizing the environment is a luxury that only wealthy nations can afford?
That's a common but mistaken framing of the issue. I would argue that for developing nations, a sustainable path is not a barrier, but a vital pathway to resilient and lasting prosperity. The old model of development, industrialize first with cheap, dirty energy, and then clean up the mess later, is a trap. Developing nations are often the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and environmental degradation. They suffer the most from crop failures, water scarcity, and extreme weather. For them to invest in fossil fuel infrastructure now is to lock themselves into a future of high costs, pollution, and dependency. The alternative is to leapfrog this outdated model. By investing in decentralized renewable energy, like local solar and wind grids, they can provide reliable power to remote communities, creating local jobs and energy independence. By investing in sustainable agriculture and agroforestry, they can ensure food security and restore ecosystems, rather than destroying them. This isn't a luxury. It's a smarter, more efficient, and ultimately more profitable development strategy for the 21st century.
If I may, Anya, this sounds wonderful in a university seminar, but it's deeply disconnected from reality. The single fastest and most effective method for lifting millions of people out of abject poverty has been rapid industrialization. That's a historical fact. That process requires immense amounts of cheap, reliable base load power. To tell a country that it cannot build a coal or natural gas plant that could power a city and create thousands of jobs, and that it should instead wait for the gradual development of solar panels, is to condemn another generation to poverty. It's an idealistic vision that is frankly immoral.
Mr. Carter, let me turn to you. Your argument rests heavily on the power of future innovation, funded by the wealth we create today. But many climate scientists and ecologists warn of irreversible environmental tipping points. If we cross these thresholds, triggering mass species extinction, the collapse of ocean currents, or runaway feedback loops from melting permafrost, what good is the money we have earned? Can a strong economy reverse a permanently collapsed ecosystem? Can you buy back an extinct species?
That's a powerful and important question, and I do not dismiss the risks. The concept of tipping points is serious. However, we must also consider the risks of the alternative: economic stagnation. Human history is a story of adaptation and innovation in the face of crisis. The solutions to these complex problems will not be found by retreating into a shell of precautionary anti-growth policies. That approach would stifle the very dynamism and creativity we need. It's the wealth generated by a market economy that funds the brilliant minds at our universities and labs who are working on solutions like direct air carbon capture, advanced material science for recycling, and genetic engineering to create drought-resistant crops. To deliberately weaken our economy in the name of avoiding potential future risks is to guarantee our inability to cope with any crisis that comes our way, be it environmental or otherwise. A poorer world is a more fragile world. The greater risk, in my view, is economic stagnation, which would leave us weak, impoverished, and unable to master our destiny. We must be bold and keep moving forward.
That is not boldness. It's a reckless gamble with our only home. Mr. Carter is essentially advocating that we keep accelerating toward a cliff edge, confident that we will invent wings just before we go over. It's a faith-based approach, not a rational one. We cannot manage a planetary system whose intricate complexities we are only just beginning to understand. The idea that we can break it and then simply invent a technological fix is the height of arrogance. Precaution is not about stifling growth, it's about responsible risk management. Any successful CEO, any competent engineer, understands that you do not redline a complex system indefinitely. You respect its limits. That is not weakness, it's wisdom.
We're nearing the end of our time. I would now like to give you both 90 seconds for your closing statements. Mr. Carter, you may begin.
Thank you. The choice before us is one between two futures. One is a future of managed decline, where we're hampered by restrictions and fear, becoming progressively poorer and less capable of dealing with any challenge. The other is a future of dynamic progress. I urge you to choose the latter. Economic prosperity is not the enemy of the environment. It's its necessary savior. It's the wealth we create that will fuel the innovation required to build a cleaner, healthier, and more advanced world. Let us focus on creating that wealth, on unleashing human ingenuity, and on building a future of practical progress, not idealistic paralysis. Let's be the architects of a prosperous and therefore sustainable future.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Ms. Davis, your final thoughts.
The fundamental truth is this: we cannot have a healthy economy on a sick planet. The economy is a human invention. The biosphere is our irreplaceable life support system. To sacrifice the latter for the former is a fool's bargain. The choice is not, and has never been, growth versus no growth. It's a choice between smart, sustainable, and equitable growth versus a short-sighted path that leads to environmental collapse and economic ruin. Protecting our planet's climate, its biodiversity, and its natural resources is not a cost. It's the most essential economic investment we can make, an investment in our long-term stability, prosperity, and survival. Our balance sheet must include the health of the planet itself.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, and thank you, Mr. Carter, for a truly compelling and insightful debate. Tonight, we've heard two powerful visions for our future, highlighting the central tension between the immediate and tangible need for economic development and our profound existential duty of planetary stewardship. The path forward remains uncertain, but the importance of this conversation is not. Thank you for watching Cross Currents.